Hello, friends. Welcome back to Saturday Evenings Posted Mostly Presents with me, your host, Trevor Stewart, 1308, and we are here with the ASOC Prodcat and the Peanut Gallery. How y'all doing?
Live.
There you go. Before we get into it, today's ad read, today's pre-rolls, brought to you by The Hidden Leaf, downtown Charlottesville, 105 West Main Street. Great place to go with some great buds to get some great buds. A bud, and the only thing better than their bud is their customer service. Also, they have the lowest prices in town, according to my own personally highly biased research, by which I mean I was incredibly high when I did my personally biased research. They are findable on Instagram at The Hidden Leaf, where you can also find our other sponsors, Kush Gang Snacks, purveyor of fine edibles and drinkables, findable at Kush Gang Snacks on Instagram, or at KG Snacks 434 on Instagram, and Firehouse Organics, spelled with a Z. Where there's smoke, there's Firehouse, spelled with a Z. Also findable on Instagram at Firehouse Organics, spelled with a Z. Quick note of disclaimer. We will be expressing political and social opinions on this show. The opinions expressed herein belong to the expresser of the opinion and or the channel and or the parent company, but not necessarily by any of our advertisers, including Hidden Leaf, Kush Gang, and Firehouse Organics, spelled with a Z. Alright, I think that's the ad read, and we are into it. So,
I do have a question for you.
I have an answer.
How's it spelled again?
With a Z. That's Firehouze. Not to be confused with Firehouse Subs, which are also good, but not a sponsor of the show. Oh, actually, I don't know if they're good. I've never had them.
I have had them. They are good, and they're not a sponsor yet.
Not a sponsor yet. We can hope. All right, well, it has been a week in the news, and it feels like for the first time in a little over a month or so, the Iran war is not absolutely dominating the news. I'm beginning to be able to listen to the news again without getting burnt out on hearing how many war crimes the U.S. is committing in Iran.
How many war crimes committing, period.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Wow. I don't know. If you change up the location, I stay interested. But when it's just we're committing more war crimes in Iran, we're committing more war crimes in Iran, we're committing more war crimes in Iran, then I still care. I hate that we are doing this in Iran. This is not a good look. But there are other things in the news going on that need talked about. But having said that, I think we will start with POTUS and the Nothing speech. And his new forever 2-week war.
POTUS and the Nothing speech. Is that like Harold and the Purple Crayon?
I think so. They both rely heavily on imagination, magical thinking, and alternative reality facts.
But one is educational and the other one is just horrific.
Yeah, I do feel like you know, anything past that first level similarities start to disappear. One involves a very adult child and the other's a man baby.
Yeah.
You know, that's about where the similarities really start to dissolve. One is a beloved childhood character, the other is a behated childhood nightmare. Behated? Does that work as a word?
I mean,
Why not?
Why not? So, what was the joke you told right before we went on air about this? Because I feel like that, as weak a laugh as that got from me in the moment, it's actually pretty good.
Kind of growing on you like a fungus.
I mean, it originally stuck to me like a slime mold.
Oh man, break out my least favorite D&D monster.
the Jello Cube.
Anything to do with slimes. But yeah, it's his forever 2-week war because he's too weak to win it.
I mean, he is. This is... We have never learned our lesson, apparently, about getting involved in a foreign ground war with no clear objectives. And it's about to turn into a ground war. He's sent troops. He's diverted troops from near China and North Korea. And they arrived.
There is a clear objective. That being said, there is not a clear end.
What's the... I don't think there are clear objectives. Hey, Darth Dragonis, good to see ya.
It is not at all a military objective.
No, it's a financial objective, effectively.
Nah. I was thinking more of the... Oh, red flag over here. Distraction!
Political
Yes.
objective.
Okay.
I don't think it's a single clear objective. I think it's several kind of muddy objectives. There's the political false flag play, or, all of the political distractions and objectives. I feel like trying to be involved in a war, I feel like he's trying to win this war either before the midterms to say, look, see, I'm strong and can win these wars, or he's trying to be embroiled in a conflict at the time of elections so he can say, don't change horses midstream.
But that really only works if it's his election. Because technically, if he's pulling this, I am the high and mighty President King, then the midterm elections for all of his underlings mean nothing because they are not the high and mighty President King.
I don't think if we're involved in this conflict at the midterms, I don't think we'll be out of it by the generals.
It depends. Maybe I would really, really hope that at the midterms enough new people are brought in that they turn around and go, you know what? We're done with this. Your war has to stop because this was not approved.
That's what we hope for. However, I think what I'm saying is, I think from his position, he'll continue to sell it as we'll be out in 2 or 3 weeks. But if we're still in it at the midterms, he's going to stay in it until we get to the generals so he can say, don't change horse midstream.
I do have a question for you, though.
Mm-mm.
How many children does this man have?
As far as I know, 2 daughters and 3 sons.
So that's just proof that he has problems pulling out.
I figured that's where you were going with that joke.
Since Zelensky suspended their elections during war, he thinks he will be able to do the same, unaware that we didn't have those laws. That is a good point. So there are some reasons. I can see some political reasons why he wants to be involved in this war.
Yeah.
Now, there are also the financial reasons.
Oh, yeah.
He wants that oil. He wants to be in a war, I think, because he has military contractor friends who are making money. I think that domestic oil companies are making money. He has... So, we do produce enough oil and liquefied natural gas, enough crude and LNG, that we technically don't need the Strait of Hormuz. However, we don't produce enough for us here at home and for the rest of the world, or even the rest of the world that we care about. And we don't produce enough at home to keep prices below $4 a gallon, which is a big deal. So, while we don't technically need the Strait of Hormuz, we really do depend on the pressure relief that Middle Eastern LNG, helium, and crude place on. Oh, and we do need the helium.
Yeah.
That we do need. But so as Trump says things like, you know, let Europe deal with it, it's really their problem. He also he actually believes that, but he also wants absolute control over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, domestic oil companies are making a lot of money off of this. The people who are making the most money probably are the people who own shipping shipping methods. the people who own the ships. So there are these financial incentives for the war. And then there are also a bunch of personal incentives. Trump hates Iran. Trump wants to beat up on Iran. Trump wants to beat up on people in general. Trump wants a war. Trump wants to win this war specifically. You know, ever since Trump blamed Iran for an assassination attempt, he's been spoiling for a fight with them. And that's why he doesn't give clear goals. He just wants to beat up on them until he feels like he's done. All of these objectives, while they are definable, I feel like are pretty muddy when you look at them, when you try to parse the individual bits out. But I also think that is a function of this person that we have in charge. I use the word person very loosely. His motivations in general are based on whim. They are very muddy, very emotional, very hard to define. His greater motivations, money, power, legacy, these are easy to pin down, easy enough to define, but they're very broad.
Mm-hmm.
So as you take the microscope in and sort of examine any of his possible individual motivations, it does begin to get very fuzzy, very muddy. Which is why I don't think we're gonna see a clean end to the war, to the Iranian war. And I did predict we're gonna send ground troops in, and we haven't put boots on the ground yet, but we are about to. And I predict that we will have a ground war in Iran.
Yeah.
And I predict we will commit more atrocities. I predict we will kill a lot of innocent civilians. And not we. I didn't vote for this. I do not want this. I have nothing to do with this. However, it is being done in the name of the country that I live in. I personally am not surprised at all by this. You know, this is okay, sure. This guy spoiling for a fight got us in a war. Why am I not surprised? But I feel like there are a lot of people who voted for Trump because they expected him to be the peace president, to not get us into wars.
No, he's the POS president.
Yes. I think they are holding out, hoping that this is a quick war. I do not think it will be.
No.
So one of the things I think that this was distracting from is I feel like this was an attempt to distract from what the Supreme Court heard arguments on this week. There were a couple of things in the Supreme Court this week. There was a decision handed down that I heavily disagree with myself, and I see the logic of their decision. I just think it's wrong. The decision was, I believe it was in Colorado. I don't remember where, but there is a state that had regulated the speech of therapists to exclude conversion therapy. It was a conversion therapy ban. Now, there's still a ban on non-talk methods of conversion therapy, whatever that is. Conversion therapy is when queer people undergo different types of therapy to try to keep them from being queer. And it can be as innocuous as talk therapy, convincing them not to act on their queer urges, down to as far, and can go as far as aversion therapy, including I don't know all of the methods. I don't want to speak out of turn exactly here. I know some of the methods in the past would fall under what I would consider torture. In any case, our feelings about conversion therapy are pretty... Hey, Chris in the 386. We pretty much don't like it. What SCOTUS decided was that they couldn't ban speech therapy, speech conversion therapy, because it's protected under the free speech laws. So as long as it's just speech, there's still the ability for conversion therapy in whatever state this is. I disagree. Speech from professionally licensed individuals who are licensed to speak should be regulated. We are in a free country and actions are free, right? You can do pretty much whatever you want, except certain actions are regulated because they are harmful actions, such as practicing medicine. Also, legal speech is regulated. It's It's why we are so careful to say things like alleged, and why I was so careful to not say conversion therapy is getting electric shock treatment and drugs that make you sick and getting beaten. You know, I don't know that those things are true, so I'm not gonna say that they're true. Because, well, because I have ethics and integrity, but also because it's regulated. Alex Jones got sued for spreading lies. Free speech, while at its core is a great concept, I do see where it has its limits. I'm not saying that, I'm saying that, you know, what, like, how we're not allowed to scream fire in a crowded movie theater. I get that. That's a good one. That's important. I do believe that we should be allowed to, as citizens, and as members of the press, we should be allowed to criticize, especially public figures. I feel like we should be way more careful when taking on other private citizens. You know, that is, I see the reason for libel and slander laws.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we are not licensed journalists means
Except for there is no such thing.
there should be.
No, because journalism in and of itself is the practice of
That's fair.
expressing your free speech.
That's fair.
And there's a lot of people that want to make out how so and so they're not a licensed journalist, so they can't be here, they can't say these things, they don't have free speech, which is wrong.
I actually okay. I feel like it should be the other way around. I feel like licensed journalists should have to be more careful with what they say, because it has to be true. It has to be factual. It can't be. And then the rest of us are allowed to be a lot looser with our speech, because it's less effective. Our speech is less effective, so we don't have to worry about the effects that has. However, I see where you're coming from too. I get where you're coming from too. And just because I see the world inside out doesn't mean that that's the way it is.
Well, the other thing is that the way the law is structured, it does give kind of that backing. If you are talking about public figures that are doing public things, they have far less protections for defamation and other such things than private citizens. So it really does turn it a case of, okay, if you are someone acting as a journalist and you're saying all these things about a private citizen, they have way more power and way more legal standing to sit there and nail you to the wall for that versus the mayor.
A public figure. Also, by being a journalist or a member of the press, you are turning yourself into a public figure.
And that includes people that do what we're doing right now.
Right. We are public figures. I'm a public figure. And I knew it when I started my YouTube channel in 2011 and was posting my stand-up comedy. I've also always been a public figure. I've been in the public eye, not consistently, but off and on since my childhood.
Exactly.
Now, I feel like on the free speech, we're wandering away from the point of therapists having their professional speech regulated. I wanted to point out that I did want to point out that journalists did for a time have a form of regulation on their public speech. The Equal Time Act.
Yeah.
And
there was that.
I believe that I believe that the diminishment, the destruction of that regulation has led to more polarized media coverage of things.
I mean, when you as a channel do not have to give equal time to both sides, you can dedicate yourself to one side or the other without repercussion, then yeah.
Yep.
Polarized is pretty easy to achieve.
On the other hand, I can see how giving equal time to both sides of a debate can create false debates, such as the trans debate, which is a debate of, on one side it's should trans people be able to do these things that make us uncomfortable, and the other side is going, we are trans people and we are just debating our right to exist. This is not a debate. We are people with a right to exist. And so giving equal time gives equal weight to both of these arguments, which I don't think is appropriate. I don't think you should be giving equal weight to an argument of taking away someone's humanity. And I do see how this may have, and this is a correlation, not causation.
Yeah.
I see a correlation in the timing of getting rid of equal time and the rise in visibility and activism for not just trans rights, but for women's rights and for black people's rights, all of the civil rights. That's what I'm looking for.
I'm going to have to you there. They did not get rid of the equal time doctrine or law or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
They have not enforced it for quite a while. It is still on the books, but it has not been enforced for quite a while. It was recently enforced in a very heavy-handed fashion on, oh come on, one of the night shows. They were forced to not air, as in publicly air, their interview with a Democratic hopeful.
Oh, yes.
Because that was against the equal time rulings, because there wasn't someone on the opposite side speaking.
Well, there you go.
I mean, that's true.
Now, it has been something that has been practiced, that talk shows, which are both informational and entertainment, but primarily entertainment, were held exempt from this ruling. Now, anything that's supposed to be an active news show is supposed to
give equal time.
Equal time ruling. And a number of times you can get around this by actively reaching out to the opposing side asking for comment. If they have chosen to not comment and have responded and such, then you have done your due diligence.
Okay.
You have tried. Just like, as a fellow listener of NPR, many times you'll hear, we have reached out to so-and-so, but they have not responded by time of airing, or they have chosen not to participate.
They were not available for comment.
I always thought that was NPR being ethical.
That's the whole point of the equal.
They are being ethical. They are being consistently ethical, whereas a lot of others aren't.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, I know we're not ethical, but we're also not news. We're news analysis.
We're more.
But
we're.
I mean, yes, we are.
We are an opinion show, just straight up.
And we say that early on.
It's just like how The View is an opinion show.
Yes.
But they're far less fun. Sorry.
No, understood. But
the
nightly news is not an opinion show.
No, it is news.
Now, there's one fun fact that a lot of people seem to forget.
Fox News is news entertainment.
They are not listed in the FCC as a news channel.
No, they are not. They are listed as entertainment.
They never
so
filed
to be fair
news
and balanced. They don't have to be fair and balanced.
They just need to be a little more transparent about their actual listings and requirements.
I don't actually have to be transparent about that. That's the effed up thing. Like, they haven't. That's why they haven't run afoul of the FCC. Is they've done everything they need to do. The one thing where they ran afoul was it Alex Jones? Was he them? Or was he independent at that point, and was it somebody else? It was Alex Jones.
No, Alex Jones is...
It was somebody else repeating Alex Jones's talking points, I think.
Something.
Right. In any case, this was the sort of the losses at the at SCOTUS this week, but the win Well, I don't know if it was a win yet. But, and this is part of what, this is one of the things I think the war is trying to distract from.
I mean, yes,
And I
but
think-
on the other hand, when you have the president for the first time ever, or
Well, I think the war
I think
is...
how many times has the president actually sat in on a Supreme Court ruling?
First time.
Let me get there. I'm getting
sorry.
there. Nothing could have distracted from the oral arguments. Nothing could have distracted us from that.
Mm-mm.
And Trump knew he was going to go because he knew he was going to... Anyway, I'll get to that. Some of what the war was a distraction from was the build-up to it. The war dominated the news for that month before this. And nobody had any idea this was coming. I mean, people obviously did, but it was not being talked about until the day before. At which point, NPR is like, oh, and we're doing this coverage of this. It's like, oh, wait, what?
Yep.
But it just wasn't being talked about by anybody. I saw no chatter anywhere. And so I think the war did a great job of distracting from this. This being the birthright citizenship case. And there are... So this is a huge deal for the president, which is why he sat in. This is one of the fundamental keystone issues for his administration. Not just for his administration, but for the people who have supported him through everything else. This birthright citizenship issue isn't just about immigration. This is about being able to define who is and who isn't an American. American. Mm-hmm. This is about being able to define what an American looks like. This is the big step towards Christian nationalism that his base wants.
Mm-hmm.
I hate them using that term because there ain't nothing Christian about what they're trying to do.
No.
I argue ain't nothing Christ-like about it, but Christians, since their ascension to power, have behaved a lot like this.
Well, I can't argue that point. My only statement is to be Christian is to follow in the footsteps. So a lot of these people claiming to be Christian, and historically...
We'll get to that. This is going to bring up my rant about April Fool's Day.
Okay.
I have a rant saved up for that. And Easter can catch some too. But we're going to stay on topic for now. I agree, there is nothing Christ-like about what they do. So, now this has been the big one, this is that big, wanting to define Americans. And I mean, by Americans, I don't mean Canadians and Mexicans. They're obviously not, Americans. He says heavily leaning on, what's that thing I don't ever do? Sarcasm.
Right. You never use sarcasm.
I really try not to because it can be very hard to tell when I'm being serious. I have a voice that naturally tends towards a sarcastic sound.
See, I tend to use sarcasm on a fairly regular basis, in case you had not noticed. I also try to deliver both my jokes and my sarcasm in as flat of a conversational tone as possible. To, one, make them hit a bit harder, and two, make you think about it.
I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. It bothers me when people do that. Because if I can't tell you're being sarcastic, I'm going to take you at your word. And just go on with life like that without any clue. Which could leave me being angry at someone.
I understand and appreciate that.
It's, or not just angry, but it can lead to my feelings being hurt. It can lead to me, by way of misunderstanding, it could lead to me just walking away from someone being like, oh, you're not a person I need to know. It could lead to all kinds of, by way of, because I'm not actually great at picking up on meaning. I'm not great at, like, getting it. I'm actually really bad at it. Which is why I'm just an idiot with a computer, a cell phone, and too much time on my hands. I don't really have too much time on my hands anymore. But I'm just an idiot. And, like, when people do that, sometimes I feel like they're expecting me to pick up on more than I'm capable of picking up on. And it's...
I also do attempt to clarify when it seems they did not catch the quote-unquote punchline.
Yeah, which is good. That's good. That's important. You know, yeah. I'm not gonna hold it against someone for being sarcastic. I don't, I even, when I'm in on the joke, I even find it funny.
You turn and look at me.
It had absolutely nothing to do with what was being said.
It doesn't help.
I can't tell if either of you are being sarcastic at the moment.
No, you said I'm not going to hold it against anybody for being sarcastic, and he literally turned around and looked in my direction.
Timing was unfortunate. It had nothing to do with it.
Immaculate, not unfortunate. Immaculate. There's a difference. Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent myself. That's part of it for me. I don't want people getting the wrong idea about me. Not that I both do and don't care what people think. But like I said, I don't want to misrepresent myself. If I represent myself as I am and people have a negative opinion of me, that's on them. If I misrepresent myself and people develop a negative opinion of me, that's on me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And people don't, people don't get my jokes most of the time anyway. Not most of the time. Sometimes, anyway. Like, I'll tell a joke and somebody will look at me and go, I have no frame of reference for that. Except for usually they don't say I have no frame of reference. They go, I don't get it. So, I'm keenly aware that my humor doesn't always land. So I don't want to use humor that is easily misinterpreted. Especially when my sarcasm voice and regular voice sound so similar.
Fair enough.
Now so back to the point at hand. This SCOTUS ruling, or this not ruling, this hearing of oral arguments at the Supreme Court, in the Supreme Court over this. Trump showed up for this. He, for one thing, he used an executive order to put in place new rules that everyone in the courtroom had to be seated before the proceedings and before he entered, so that no one could get so that I don't know that it's so that no one could get a look at him, but it prevented most of the journalists from seeing what was going on with Trump. He only stuck around for the oral arguments of his side of the administration's attorney, guy who used to be Trump's personal attorney, apparently. Now, I think that what Trump was doing was specifically, I think there were several things he was doing. A, he was reminding the justices who put them there, probably glowering at them to remind them that he's the all-important, mighty President King God. He was there to add strength to the arguments of his attorney, and this next thing will come up again in a moment. He was auditioning this guy, this attorney, to replace Pam Bondi. Well, actually, we can talk about her being gone right now, because that's really quick. She got fired.
Yep.
She got fired for all the reasons that I said she was going to get fired for. She got fired for setting so many traps for herself. for not winning the Epstein files mainly,
Yep.
and then not
Not
being
being
able to control the lower courts. And yeah, all kinds of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So now, back to SCOTUS and the case at hand. So at one point, one of the justices asked the counsel for the counsel who is not there for the administration. I can't remember who they were representing now.
ACLU, among other things.
Right. Hypothetically, how would you want to win this case?
Mm-hmm.
Which, on its surface, is like saying, you won this case. However, there is a deeper level to that. There's a multiple choice question. And what the court probably really wants to do. And this was the court basically asking if the counsel is okay with winning the case in the way the court would prefer to rule.
Mm-hmm.
This is not actually a broad case about citizenship, birthright citizenship in general, conceptually.
Mm-hmm.
This is specifically about, and now I can't remember the guy's name, specifically about a single case where that established birthright citizenship in the first place, or not
The
established,
18 whatever case, which, if I'm remembering correctly from what I was hearing through a different source, Trump's people brought up that case, and the justices looked at them and asked, "Are you sure you want to cite that case?"
There were several cases that they cited. The one that the hearing was about was the man whose family had been here, run. It was prior to the Chinese Exclusion Act. What?
Are you thinking of Abrego Garcia?
No.
Okay, because that's the only one my limited brain space has held on to.
Yeah, fair.
No, this is prior to the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Mm-hmm.
This was back. It was in the 18 somethings.
Oh, okay.
But like there was one from 1845, one from 1850, one from 1860 something, and one from 1860 something else.
Yeah.
So there were like 4 cases from the 1800s that were brought up. This was specifically about the the Chinese American man whose parents had been here, we presume legally. There was no paperwork. There was no function for them to get here legally, be here, or there was no way for them to be here illegally prior to that time. So the assumption is they were just here legally. They'd run a business. He was born here. He grew up here. Now, I think birthright citizenship is the language of it is laid out. Some of the language of it is laid out in God, which amendment is it that freed black people? Is it 14th Amendment?
14th is the birthright citizenship.
14th is birthright citizenship. It was an earlier amendment to that. The Emancipation Act, Emancipation Proclamation, and the act that was a little bit earlier than birthright citizenship, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But it established the grounds for birthright citizenship. This guy moved back to China with his parents when things were getting uncomfortable for Chinese people in America, and then moved back and was stopped and appealed because he had been born he'd been born and grew up in America as an American. And that original case, that was the case that that the 14th Amendment was based on. And that was the case that they were discussing. That was the case that they were mainly discussing. Like, that was the one that they, I guess, were retrying. And what the justices want to rule is very narrowly. They want to rule very, very narrowly that the original case stands. The original ruling stands. They do not want to rule broadly on legislative policy. They also, most of them, are originalists. And originalists believe that the Constitution Bible was true in every word that I'm gonna drop that analogy now. That was just feeling a little too true. But that the Constitution, the text of the Constitution is the intent of the Constitution. That the wording of the Constitution is the way things are, which means the wording of the amendments are the way things are. That what's said in the words, which means that they also don't like ruling on legislative policy. if something is voted on by Congress and passed by the president, or some form of going through that format of what it has to do to become a law, to become an amendment, if you get that amendment in and the Constitution is thusly amended, the wording of that amendment is what stands, according to originalists. I believe the other side are called contextualists, and they believe that we should be taking the meaning of the Constitution and applying the meaning. We should be trying to get at the underlying ideals and motivations, and using that instead of just the words that are written. Now, it's easy to see how a contextualist would be like, nah, birthright citizenship should stand.
Right here.
However,
While you're talking, I'm looking up the effectively it's the written report of the meeting.
which meeting?
The hearings. Sorry.
Okay. Where was I?
It gave me access to the actual cases that they were citing.
Okay. Contextualists, it's not hard to see how a contextualist would be like, yeah, no. The underlying meaning is that by being born an American, you're an American.
Mm-hmm.
Originalists are hard pressed to see any loophole that would allow them, even if they wanted to undo birthright citizenship. Because it is one of the more explicit, less ambiguous amendments. The most ambiguous part of the wording of the amendment is domiciled.
Mm-hmm.
Domiciled was the big, that was the one where everybody's like, what do you mean domiciled? And contextualists immediately go, oh, you mean living in, housed in, existing. And originalists are going, we need a little more definition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where the administration, if they'd have narrowed their argument very much down to the intention of domiciled is legally housed in, legally, permanently housed. However, that falls apart when you have American nationals living abroad.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that has messed them up is the fact that they could not clearly state that this is something that they wanted to intend going forward. That it could not be used retroactively.
No, they clearly stated that in oral arguments. They
But it's not in
couldn't.
writing.
What? It's not just that it's not in writing. It's not just that it's not in writing. They couldn't define the action by which it would be maintained as going forward, not retroactive. There was no way of saying and it can only be going forward. I don't know if there is language that they could have used to make it that way, but the language they used was ambiguous enough that later on somebody could have come back and said, oh no, we also mean retroactive now.
Like I said, in the writing of their particular thing, it was ambiguous. It could be.
Right. In oral arguments, they're sitting there going, no, it's only going forward.
Plus, there's also, I don't know if you caught the one judge that has ties with a couple of different Native groups asking how this is supposed to apply in relation to the Natives.
And there was some BS about special dispensations or something.
There was a lot of hemming and hawing before they came up with the answer too.
Right. They just came up with the answer on the spot, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hold on, let me think.
No.
Stall for time. So yeah, it was pretty weak case for the administration. And when the opposing counsel answered, how would you like to win this? They were careful to choose their wording such that they were willing to take the narrow answer. They're willing to take the answer that the original ruling stands. They said, of course, we'd love...
They're willing to take the narrow answer, but they wanted the original ruling reaffirmed. Because there was the talk...
That is the narrow ruling. It's the I think that's the narrow ruling.
Here is Justice Kavanaugh asking the ACLU lawyer why the court needed to decide whether the executive order violates the Citizenship Clause if it could resolve the case based only on the Immigration and Nationality Act, citing the court's general presumption that it will avoid deciding constitutional questions if possible.
Or avoid doing their job.
Yeah, basically. So, it was, why should we decide on this if we can use this other thing? And Wong acknowledged, the lawyer acknowledged that she was happy to win on either ground, but she urged the court to reaffirm the decision in Wong Kim Ark, the case they'd been talking about, calling it a landmark decision about the definition of national citizenship in this country.
Okay, I guess that's the more broad ruling. I guess the narrower ruling was that it was a technically unsound case.
Well, the thing is you've got apparently Gorsuch pointed out that the language was between the Immigration and Nationality Act, which was put in place in 1940 and 1952, very closely mimics that 14th Amendment. So, versus, actually judging on a constitutional thing, why don't we just, judge on this law thing, which is more narrow and less restrictive, because it's not an actual constitutional question at that point. We're just basing it off of this other law.
Okay.
Making it a constitutional thing and judging, that would be much broader and much harder to change later.
Yes. However, it feels like judging on the more narrow thing would still leave room for it to be at odds with the Constitution.
I mean, yes.
Judging in favor of the ACLU lawyer would be less likely to do so.
Mm-hmm.
It would be bulwarking that act, not diminishing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, I don't know the wording of the act, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so anyway, all of that aside, the court, where the counsel for the administration made their mistake was they came in not they came in not expecting originalists to continue to be originalists, basically. Not taking into account that the originalists are going to go with what's written down. Even if they're conservative, they're going to go with what's written down.
The thing that I found interesting was there were several accounts, including one video that I specifically watched multiple times. It was just a short, but where the justices were actively, not passively, not through implication, but actively laughing at them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this brings up an interesting thing. Because from the perspective of one correspondent, one SCOTUS correspondent, this is some of the nicest that they've been to anybody ever.
Mm-hmm. Like, they were nice to the ACLU lawyer, and it seemed like they were laughing actively at Trump's lawyer.
Yes, however, they also weren't as mean to him as they are to other people, apparently. Like, they didn't... I think it was Mara Eliason. I think I'm quoting Mara Eliason here when I say they didn't beat up on him as much as they would normally have.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, normally I don't think they laugh. I think they're just I think they're serious when they're also being mean.
I mean, in general, they are serious to start with, but
I think they were having a hard time taking this seriously.
no, because if they were having a hard time taking it seriously, they wouldn't have brought up a way to deflect from the Constitution. They'd have just ruled and been like, "This is stupid. You're stupid. It's a Constitution thing." But they were taking it seriously in that respect, and they
as
found
much as they could.
True, but yeah, no. I have listened to other people read a whole bunch of different Supreme Court rulings and decisions and such. And the amount of shade that they were throwing was unusual for them, very unusual for them. You know, including the effect of asking the person, how do you want to win?
I feel like I've heard something like that before. That's the thing, is I feel like I've heard something like that before, where they were like, okay, look, the other side doesn't really have a case, but we want to know what case you're really trying to make. But the how would you like to win? I mean, that wording alone. And you said that was from Brett Kavanaugh?
Mm-hmm.
Brett, party boy, blackout on beer, Kavanaugh?
Yep.
I feel like Trump's attempt to intimidate the justices that he put on the court has failed.
I believe it has. And the fact that he has openly said after the tariff thing, when his quote unquote justices sided with the others on the tariffs, that they are a disgrace to their families, has not helped things.
No. I think what has happened is, even if the people he put in there promised and thought that they were going to be loyal to him when he put them in,
yeah.
I think part of that supposed promise was them assuming that he wasn't going to so directly go against the Constitution.
Yeah, maybe. But
I mean,
I also think
I attempt to warp it to his will, but it wasn't going to be directly against it, so they could try to go with the, okay, this is a valid interpretation, as opposed to, oh, you are specifically going the opposite direction.
I also think, man, you guys, you do this. You guys get a step ahead of me.
Sorry.
Look, if I don't speak up when I think of it, I don't get a word in edgewise. So, sorry.
I get that. I get that. I think that these people are also high on their own power. They're no longer answerable to him. All of a sudden, they realized, like, he can't take them out of the courts. You know, he could dilute their power, but they're, in their own way, as powerful as him.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, and their power is derived from the Constitution. And so all of a sudden, there is incentive for them to uphold the Constitution and not so much to side with him when he directly contravenes the Constitution, as you had brought up, Peanut Gallery. See how you were a step ahead of me there?
Yep.
It's not, it's I'm trying to I'm trying to grind these thoughts really fine here.
Mm.
There is some cellular level, molecular level stuff going on here that I kind of want to look at. And so the big thoughts are it's easy for you to, it's easy for you guys to stay a step ahead of me. Let's not equivocate. It's easier for you to stay further ahead of me because I'm trying to do a type of thinking that is even slower than my normal thinking. Were you gonna say something there, Peanut Gallery?
No, just gonna ask you a bad joke.
Okay.
Do you suffer from SLOW?
Probably.
Okay.
No. Just because I didn't go, what is that? Doesn't mean I didn't set you up.
No, I'm not. The whole thing is not to tear you down by defying it. It's just like, did you catch that? Okay, you didn't. So you obviously suffer from it.
I do. Do I get? See, I figured you'd come up with there was some acronym for slow. Like slow was an acronym for something.
No, I haven't had an acronym for that. It's just an insult that got used on me. I thoroughly appreciated it, so I have used it ever since.
Look, after what you did,
Okay, maybe I thought too far into that one.
After what you did with the peeps and coming up with what they were an acronym for, I understand him waiting to see what you're coming up with now.
Okay.
I'm not saying I don't trust you, but
You got reasons.
right? Okay.
See, just like with my flat delivered sarcasm, I leave it there for you to deal with and have to think about.
So in other words, you put the emotional labor on other people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh at that one.
I mean, I kind of agree. I guess I had an emotional C-section, so I got to do it to others.
Can we go talk about the funny picture that I put up in the chat now?
As soon as we pull up chat, we're going to start having to deal with all of the articles in chat, and I still haven't gotten through the last thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to end my portion on a high note.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, no, two things. Because I did just
We're
find
always
out.
going to end on a high note. I mean, come on.
I knew that was coming.
Look at your sponsors.
Yes, well, the rest of the news is freaking sobering.
Unfortunately.
I do want to touch on.
Saying Exit needs to watch the news more often.
I do want to touch on Christy Gnome's husband's name.
Yes.
He spells his name with a Y and an O. And it's not Byron, it's Brian. He spells Brian with a Y and an O.
But why? Oh.
Brian Gnome. I don't
Look,
usually make fun of people's names, but you know you can legally change that now.
Not if he wants to vote.
Oh, oh, honey. That picture of him with the balloons up his shirt,
Oh yeah.
he's all of a sudden on the list. His vote is very, very. It's tenuous if he's going to be allowed to vote in the new regime.
Both of them.
Although, I think that this is a convenient excuse for Christie to get a divorce.
Mm.
In any case, I don't want to talk too long about that because she is actually kind of unimportant. I wanted to finish up with the we're going for the moon. We, the United States of America, in conjunction with the Canadian astronaut. Canadian? I think he's Canadian. We're going to the moon. Now, we're not going to land. We're just doing a flyby, but we're doing a flyby of the dark side of the moon. This is actually a bunch of firsts. I thought it was only 3, but this is a bunch. This is the first time human eyes will be looking at the dark side of the moon. This is
Really?
Yeah. China sent a probe. Not a human. We've never seen the dark side of the moon before, I don't think.
So it's been mooning us so long, and China decided to probe it.
This
where the
is
sun
the
goes by.
first black astronaut to go to the moon. This is the first woman to go to the moon. And this is the first non-American, non-US astronaut to go to the moon. These are some pretty big firsts.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were announced, when it was announced, when the lineup was announced, I can't remember when. Was it? Oh well, it was before the current administration.
Oh yeah. It's been a little while.
These firsts were celebrated. And when this administration came into power, I did their remove all your DEI language. All of a sudden, the gender, nationalities, and races of these astronauts very quickly went away. And they are just astronauts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to take a moment and celebrate that we are at least breaking these boundaries. I mean, it's not very much. We should do more, but
Yeah.
it's something. It's being done. So, I was gonna ask you to pull up some pictures, but because pictures have been sent back, but I've been so distracted that I forgot. So, all right, now on to what's in chat.
Yes, and you can start with the last 2 funny pictures that I posted.
Because they're appropriate to the discussion we just had.
Yes.
No clear objective, but very clear objections.
Now,
First
that's the
images
statement
from the
I was-
lunar surfaces from Artemis as they approach. Oh. Very funny. Very good.
And the one right above it.
You didn't know that one, did you?
Moments away, NASA launches astronauts on historic moon. Voice of...
I do not have Twitch, so I cannot actually see your face today. My instant response when I saw that, or when I heard that, was, damn it, Miles, you know the black shirts from Section 9 are going to come after you for that? You're not supposed to interfere.
This was the first incursion in the temporal Cold War. And this may be the reason that Miles O'Brien is the most important member of Starfleet ever. It's canon. It's canon. Miles O'Brien is the most important member of Starfleet ever is canon.
Yeah.
We don't know why. We just know that he is.
It's
But
like
also, the actor has a name.
Well, the thing is
Cole Meany. The actor has a name. He is a person.
that might be true, but they actually got an aerospace analyst named Miles O'Brien. And everybody looked at that and went, oh, they did they? Aerospace analyst.
Okay, so it isn't that they got Cole Meany to do the analyst stuff.
No, they had an actual analyst.
Okay, good. Because if they got Cole Meany doing the voice and then they called him Miles O'Brien, it was like, guys, that is insensitive.
Nope, it's just had his picture tacked on, and for those that may not recognize the name, but will recognize the face.
That's just awful.
Yes, it is. But that is why I put it in the chat.
All right. So let's get down to these. Oh. Oh, you did get an article about that.
Well, I've got their whole website that's about Artemis 2, which, among other things, one of the really cool things that they have done this time around is they have a YouTube live stream running that shows you what's going on outside Artemis.
Oh, that would be neat.
It is really cool. And you can sit and watch the Earth move and everything twist and turn, and it's, like I said, it is a live stream, so it's slow. You are watching a planet move. You're watching paint dry. But NASA has their own YouTube stream running on this.
All right. Well, that would be neat to check out, but I think we are going to save that for another day.
Oh yeah, no, that is entirely fair. Mostly, I put the NASA thing in there so that we would have a reason to talk about the Artemis 2, and I would have a reason to put up the Miles O'Brien picture.
Ah.
But also, the fact that they've got their own, that they have a live stream of the outside of the ship that everybody can watch is really cool to me.
That is pretty cool. And I think that would be neat to take a look at occasionally on stream.
Mm-hmm. I mean...
Alright, so...
If you haven't heard before now...
I guess Yeah, it's gonna be on the show tomorrow. There's no way it isn't, because it wasn't last week, was it?
Well, it happened this week.
Cheese and crackers. That means I heard about it before
Right
the
after it
show. I must have. And I completely forgot.
Yep.
Thieves steal 12 tons of Kit Kat bars in European chocolate iced.
Give me a break.
Break me off a piece of that international justice.
It had to be said. One of us was going to say it.
Right?
Yeah, no.
I didn't realize that Nestle was a Swiss firm.
Mm.
So yeah, they. What was it? A truck. 413,793 Kit Kat bars. And they're traceable using the on-pack batch numbers.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, if you're handed a random Kit Kat bar, you can check to see if it's been stolen.
Yep. I mean, granted, it's gonna be a European Kit Kat bar, not an American one.
I mean, this is true.
Being said, I think the packaging is different. Apparently, I need to move to Europe. I feel like my talents are needed to get rid of those Kit Kats. Yep. Hi, Just Me Crystal. Much love. Thank you for being here. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me. I am eating it.
Yep. Now, for me, the hilarity is this story broke. And the UK Domino's was one of the very first, if not the first,
To respond.
company to respond to Kit Kat about this tragedy. And since then, there has been a lot of quote-unquote support for Kit Kat in their trying time of losing their bars, up to and including, I saw a post from IKEA detailing how many Kit Kats you can fit in one of their tall, slim wardrobes.
How many Kit Kats can you fit in one of their tall, slim wardrobes? On an unrelated note, we are now selling Kit Kat pizza.
Yeah.
Oh, that is messed up, Domino's.
And every single one of the other...
It's the Noid. I swear, it's the Noid.
Every single one of the other quote-unquote supportive things from other companies is in that vein.
Oh, you
and it branched out from actual companies to fictional companies. There's, I forget which one it was. It's a fictional company that I've read about, but they're like, yeah, you know, in unrelated news, we have half-off Kit Kat bars in the dungeon. Like, great.
That was Camp Half-Blood.
Camp Half-Blood, yes. Yes.
Very funny. Very funny, guys. Hilarious.
There are
sudden,
definitely some that are questioning if this is a hoax intended to garner this kind of
and given around what time it happened.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our rants. Now,
I am going to go get some tea while you, in the peanut gallery, enjoy your rant.
I
will go get you some more liquid green stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to bring up First, let's let these holidays, because April 1st was just the other day. April Fool's Day is a cruel and disgusting holiday. Now, I'm not against being pranked per se. If it's a good one, it's worth a laugh. I don't prank other people, but I can laugh at myself being pranked. But April Fool's Day isn't just about pranks. The pranks were the act of a day dedicated to making fun of pagans. They were the April Fools because of how they celebrated spring. They were the April Fools for many reasons, but they were Christians were mocking pagans in this holiday. This holiday was about dressing like a pagan, running around, making fun of them, and pulling not so harmless pranks on them. It was an opportunity for one religious group to abuse other religious groups. I find this holiday abhorrent. And I try not to be a spoil sport, but as we all know, I am that friend that is too woke to enjoy holidays. And to anyone who says it ain't that deep, it is. It's all that deep. When you're someone who belongs to a marginalized group, it all is that deep. Which is why Easter can catch strays too. This is another example of the co-option of another people's culture.
You might say appropriation?
Yes. Appropriation. Thank you. That was what I was trying to say. There was not a bunny rabbit at the resurrection of Christ.
I don't know, there could have been.
There could have been. But it wasn't mentioned in the Bible as far as I know.
Oh yes, because the Bible is an infallible source of information.
True. But we are talking about, religious holidays at this point.
You mean holy days?
Yes.
The entire source of that word. And people try to keep them separate, like they don't mean the same thing. This they do.
They very much do. Which is why I kind of laugh at the idea of a secular holiday. Funny idea. Anyway. Now, I respect that it is a Christian holiday, a holy day for them, because it is about remembering the ascension of their prophet. I get that, and that's cool. It has nothing to do with chocolate, eggs, and bunny rabbits. That is a pagan spring holiday tradition. That is a fertility thing. That is about us getting excited and having fun with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Is how I will say that delicately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to begrudge Christians enjoying spring or spring activities. I don't want to begrudge Christians enjoying chocolate egg laying bunny rabbits. I want visibility for the other side of that holiday, though. I don't want my pagan fertility ritual to be sneered at while also being appropriated for the rebirth of Christ. I'm happy that he got his rebirth. Good for him. But let me do my pagan hedonism over here in peace. And the reason that it's co-opted, the reason it got appropriated, isn't for some grand religious reason or because the two things happened at the same time. It's because the people, the Catholic Church, the people the churches were assimilating weren't going to be satisfied with losing their pagan holidays. Their Saturnalia, their Estera, their Samhain. You know, all of these.
Didn't know Fred had a holiday.
What?
I didn't know Fred had a holiday.
What?
Fred Astaire.
What this has been about has been taking what has been part of a pre-existing religion and my religion and sanitizing it and Christianizing it, taking it away from the pagans, making it Christian so that the people can be Christian. It is a direct assault on the pagan religion. Even if it is not a kinetic assault, it is a direct assault on the pagan religions. Let me rephrase that. Now,
I'm sorry. That joke was not intended to take the wind out of your sails or belittle your point. It was a pun that came to me, so I shared it.
I figured as much. And I feel like the real comedy is in the way it deflated me. Um,
Now, that being said, I am unfamiliar with Astera.
spring, Easter. It's
Oh,
what our
okay.
name
So
for that holiday is.
I just knew it was named after a spirit or deity of fertility by the name of Esther. Or that was the way I heard it. So thus the name, I did not connect Esther with Asterin, so that's on me.
Osterin. Actually, I don't know how it's pronounced, so never mind. I'm not going to correct your pronunciation.
I've heard Ostera and I've heard Ostra. So
Yeah, they're. Uh, yeah, this is that holiday. And I know it feels like when I go on a rant about holidays, I'm being anti-Christian. It's I'm just upset about the wrongs done to my people in the past. And I do claim my people on this one, on these things. Because even though the Stuarts were Christians through a lot of British history, we were Roman pagans before that. And I am assuming we were Scottish Celts before that as well.
I'm
'Cause
sorry. I'm going to make another pun. That is not entirely meant to be mean, but you're attempting to be a good steward of the past.
Well, okay, so here's why that's not a pun.
Just because it is quite
Steward
clearly what the
is
name
the,
is supposed to mean.
well, yeah, it's the original spelling and meaning. Our, I think, original name was Bruce. Our name got changed. Our name got changed right after a really famous movie.
no clue what that could have been.
A
You're being
particularly courageous
sarcastic.
passing of air.
Could be, could be.
You're being sarcastic, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
So yeah, I mean we've been Christian since before that.
Mm.
Can't imagine it was long before that, but also in that movie, if you notice, the wedding scene is still very pagan.
Mm-hmm.
So while Longshanks was pagan and everybody else in the movie was Christian, they were newly converted Christians, which is why oh God, what's his name? The main character
Yes.
got sent
Mr.
away
Wallace.
to, huh? Yeah,
Mr.
Wallace.
Wallace.
That's why Wallace got sent away to France to
Mm.
learn how to be a proper Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Uh it was not long uh after Robert the Bruce was the the first Scottish king that we took on the name Steward with a D,
Mm.
which was the original spelling, and it changed to Stewart with a T, EW, at some point. And then when Bloody Mary, Queen of Scots, was fleeing to France, in a questionable attempt at hiding, she changed it to UA.
Mm.
And France is where my other name comes from.
Ah.
Trevor, or Trefort in French,
Mm.
means city, big town. So my
I'm gonna
name
say,
translates to caretaker of the city.
I'm gonna have to say it.
Do it.
Well, you can't call yourself a country boy. You're definitely a city boy.
Never said I wasn't. I'm just stuck in the country. I miss the city. So yeah, if you translate my name, it becomes City Guard.
Oh no! Really?
No wonder you're with so much self-loathing.
Oh.
Yep. No, I don't actually hate myself. I am not filled with self-loathing. I don't necessarily view city guards as cops. It's only when the city guards are working for... Ah, crap.
We just break you.
Yep.
Woohoo! All right. You know what my last name is, right?
Yes.
Right.
I think.
I have had that defined and translated for me as French for thief. Either thief or secret keeper.
Oh, this tracks. All right, Peanut Gallery, what's your name translate to?
It doesn't.
Well, you're no fun.
Yes, did I? I know what the other part is, right?
There was a point in time when my family lived on the southern border of Scotland. And we're of the
On my side or on the wrong side?
of Scotland.
Okay. On the right side.
And apparently they were in some level of leadership amongst the border clans, and they helped make certain laws. One of the laws was that while illegal to steal a horse, there was a greater punishment for refusing to help someone find their stolen horse than there was for stealing the horse.
Sounds like a place that I would survive well in. Whether it is to my detriment or not, I almost always am willing to lend a hand if asked. I have to say, I'm not against that there. Well, all right. We have reached, I believe, the end of the show today. It will be interesting to see what shows up tomorrow. I'm guessing that the Kit Kats are gonna be amongst the first 3 questions so that they can talk about the responses.
Yeah. I hope so, anyway.
Yeah. Well, all right. Any last minute, anything to bring up?
Let's see. Let's see. The thing with Bondi probably won't be on tomorrow's show. However, Gnome might get mentioned. Meanwhile, there is another lawsuit, yet another one, going forward about the coins that Trump is trying to have struck with his likeness on them.
Oh, yeah, he's trying... Right.
For America's birthday.
And he's trying to get his signature on... What is it? The dollar bill, the $5 bill, the $10 bill, some crap like that.
I think it's the dollar bill, and it looks like he's going to get his signature on that because that's really not a big issue. However, I know of a lot of people that are planning on making use of their Sharpies once they have those bills in circulation.
Because the man obviously prefers to have his name redacted.
Yep. But as far as the coins go, there's
right,
a
law Crystal.
Been filed blocking that and citing the fact that we actually have in law that no living person is supposed to be pictured on any of our money.
Right.
So that'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Also, presidential signatures don't go on the money.
They don't, but that's not...
It's supposed to be Secretary of the Treasury.
Yeah.
Right. For a while, I was trying to memorize as many secretaries of the Treasury as I could.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out when their run was by what the dates on the dollar bills were.
Mm.
And then I realized I do not have a good enough memory to do that.
Fair.
You remembered you had a bad memory?
I would not say remembered.
Realized?
That's what he said, but I like my way of saying it better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, no, see, I still don't always remember that I have a bad memory. I sort of have to come upon that on my own. Like, it's like,
Be reminded of it.
Right.
See, coming to the realization is finding out for the first time. Being reminded, you have remembered.
But remembering has a different connotation than to have been reminded. One is a self-actuating thing, and the other one denotes an outside force reminding you in some way, shape, or form.
Also, remembering and having remembered are different. Because I can have remembered something and not currently remember it, not currently be remembering it, or be able to remember it.
Well, one is present tense and one is past tense.
Yes. One is present tense as well as being past indefinite. As in ongoing. Happened in the past, but continues happening now. We were remembering.
Right now, we're just arguing for Samuel's shenanigans.
Yes, we are. So, as we argue over semantics pedantically, I think this is where we will end the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Peanut Gallery. Thank you, everybody in chat, even though we are currently in ad break. Thank you, Just Me Crystal. Thank you, Chris into 386. Thank you, Darth Dragonis. Is there anybody else in chat? Nope, that was everybody.
That's everybody in chat. You got some lurkers, but that's who's in chat.
Thank you, all you lurkers. Much love. Stick around for the raid. Thank you for being here. Now is the time on the show when I say, as they say around here, 2 up, 2 down, VA, double deuces. We're out, y'all.
This track might be weak, but you weaker. You piss me off like a scuff mark on a sneaker. Got no class, so I'll fail your ass like a third grade teacher take you to school, you goddamn fool. You a poser, just a pastiche. See me, I'm the real thing. Get wrecked. High speed W like a tape deck. Snap your neck if you clap back like who's next.